Now, this is our last message on our latest series called Dumpster Fire. What do you do when the world seems like it's falling apart? Now, again, this was written in context to we had an election. And during election years, you have people fighting, you have people arguing, you have people that will not talk to family members anymore. And now it's going to get at an all-time high because we're going into Thanksgiving. And then we're going into Christmas. So now it's going to ratchet it up. So how do you get through it? Now, I'm going to give you a little example of what I'm saying. There's a whole old saying that says you're never supposed to talk about what? Politics and religion. But you ever wonder why that is? I mean, aren't we supposed to share our faith as Christ followers? So why can't we talk about it? And in terms of your political affiliation, you love your country, you want to give your side. Why is that so terrible? I think the underlying problem is that you have people in your life that refuse to accept any other opinion other than theirs. That's the bigger problem, okay? So, for example, you could make that case for sports. As many of you guys know, I'm a huge sports person. My Dodgers just won the World Series. My Rams are, I'll get to you. Our Rams won the Super Bowl. It seems like just yesterday. It was a couple years ago. And my USC Trojans just beat UCLA, which was great. And so, I mean, I love, Lakers. So I love sports. But if we're being honest, if you go to a family gathering and they like the other team, that could cause issues too, just like political differences or any other kind of differences. It's like if I'm at dinner with someone and they happen to be a Giants fan, and then that person, I'm not going to look even over there, then that person says, the Giants really do have a better team than the Dodgers this year. They were just hurt. That's going to get some blood boiling. And what even gets worse is, and you can put this to the Yankees as well, but what gets worse is when you're online and somebody goes, the Dodgers only won because the Yankees hit a slump at the wrong time of the year. I want to respond with not Pastor James, but with like Dodger fan James, and like how wrong and crazy that you are. How could you say that? Now, again, these are things that we're brought up with. I remember I told you this before, but my dad, huge sports fan as well, and big Dodgers fan. And I remember we were driving to school, and I said, I hate homework. And he says, you can't hate. And I said, why? He said, because Christians don't hate. And so I wanted to get him on this. I'm thinking, like, how about the devil? Can't I hate the devil? And he's like thinking, he didn't even look at me. He's just driving. He's thinking, he's like, yeah, you could hate the devil. And the Giants. So you're bred with these types of things, right? You're bred with these types of things. So when they come up, you get a little upset. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't hate anything about the actual Yankee organization or the Giants organization. They have great players, except for Barry Bonds, who's clearly a cheater, should never be in the Hall of Fame. But they've got great organizations, right? They're good, they're talented, they've won championships. It's not that I have a problem with the organizations. So then what then is the problem? It's the fans. It's where you get to be the fans, and that's the issue. So for example, when you're talking about politics, it's not exactly like you have a personal issue with these particular politicians, because if I'm being honest, no matter how you voted, if I'm in a room with Kamala Harris, I might enjoy my time, she seems like she laughs a lot. I like people, I tell jokes, so she would laugh a lot. Or Joe Biden, if I was in a room with him, he's been in government for a long time. I'm sure he's got fascinating stories that I could hear from him. I'd probably personally like being around these people. Or Trump. Trump seems like a fun party guy. He gets on a plane and he's eating McDonald's. I like McDonald's. He goes see UFC fights. He kind of dances real fun. This seems like a cool guy to hang out with, right? So it's not like I have a problem with any of these particular people. Then what is the problem? Again, it's the fans that get to be the issue. For example, I never watch sports TV in terms of other than a game because I can't stand it. All it is people talking about hypotheticals and this is my power rankings for this week and this is who should be fired and this is the best. I just think it's a bunch of nonsense. But when the Dodgers won the World Series, and I did this when the Rams won the Super Bowl, I watched and recorded every single sports show because I wanted so bad to see these people eat crow. The specialists that said the Dodgers will never win, I just loved watching these guys go, wow, it was a surprise to me. They hit their stride at the right time. Yes, I could just see your heart breaking, and I pause it right there as you're like, I loved watching that, right? It was great. Even when the Rams won the Super Bowl, every single program I recorded because I wanted to see them eat crow because they were all the ones that said that they couldn't do it. Now, be honest, guys. The election went one way. So, if you were on the side of the winning side, let's say, how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, watched MSNBC for the first time to say, oh, morning Joe, oh, this is going to be good. Or CNN, oh, yes. You normally would never watch it. And it's the same if it's the other way around. Like if Trump lost, I'm sure people would want to see other pundits going, oh, let's see what excuses they have. It's that thing where it's like, oh, yes, I want to see them suffer because they said all this stuff and now they're squirming around and that's just one of the things that we have. Guys, we're like that with our families too. We can't wait to prove our family wrong. We can't wait to tell them how wrong they are and how right we are. That's why these things get crazy on Thanksgiving and on Christmas, right? So how in the world do I get through the holidays this year, Pastor James? Now, some of you might think, I know, okay, without, alcohol. Well, then I don't know. So how do you get through the holidays? Like, really? We're going to talk about this, okay, today. Paul outlines this in the early church. He says this in Romans 12:14. Bless those who persecute you, and bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone, if it is possible, and as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Again, if it's possible, and it's so much as it depends on you. Meaning this is the goal. This is what you have to try to do. It's not always going to work because they're not always going to accept it, but you have to try. Now, it's not grace, just so you know, it is not grace when they already agree with you. That's not grace. I mean, be like, hey, I have a ton of grace, except if you disagree with me, I'm going to blow you out of the water, right? No, it doesn't count. It doesn't count as grace if they actually, and you say, well, did Paul really mean everyone? Even the women on The View, did he really mean everyone? He means everyone. As much as it's up to you, he means everyone. Some of you might be thinking, yeah, that sounds pretty nice, Paul, a little Pollyanna-ish for me. Nah, it's cool. I'm not going to follow that particular advice. Thanks anyways. Next. No. Here's the deal. I know it's hard, but remember this, guys. As Christians, the goal isn't to escape blame from others, but it's to emulate the behavior of Jesus. That's the point. We have to emulate the behavior of Jesus. It's not just to win an argument or anything like that. Now, to be clear, Jesus promises you this is going to be hard. I'm telling you in advance, you're not going to like doing this. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very, very difficult. There's a story in the Old Testament about something very, very similar to this, and it's about King David. And we pick it up here. It's 2 Samuel 9:3. It says, the king asked, is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness? And Ziba answered the king, there is still a son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet. Now, let me set the stage for you here. Saul was the king, okay? Saul became jealous of David, and Saul wanted to kill David. And he actively tried to kill David. He doesn't succeed, though. And so David is meeting with all of his people at his court. And David is now king. And David's like, hey, is there any of Saul's descendants that I could actually be kind to? Now, this would have absolutely been very puzzling for anybody that was there. Because they would have said, like, why would you show kindness to him? He tried to blow you up. He tried to kill you. Why would you try to show kindness or bless one of his descendants? It doesn't make any sense. Now, what does it look like to bless someone? To bless someone means to encourage them, uplift them, serve them, resource them, benefit them, yes, even pamper them. So again, the king asked, is there no one still alive from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness? Ziba answered the king, there is still the son of Jonathan. He is lame in both feet. And he says, well, where is he? The king asked. Ziba answered, he is in the house of Machir, son of Amiel in Lodebar. Now, Jonathan is Saul's son, and he is crippled in both feet. And it's interesting here that she describes him by his worst feature. Do you notice that part? He is no. So why is that significant? Why does that matter? Because when you want to dismiss somebody else, you describe them with their worst possible feature or the worst thing about them. So therefore, I don't have to listen or pay attention to them. So for example, you could be at a family gathering. You could say, hey, I really like Bob. Bob's a really nice guy. I'd like to get to know him better. He's really, really nice. And the person's insecure and they don't want you to talk to Bob because they don't like Bob's opinion. So they go, oh yeah, Bob is nice, but Bob's been divorced 7 times. So yeah. What does it matter? Why do I need to know that? Because I'm trying to dismiss this person as don't pay attention to them. Don't listen. Mary's really, really sweet. I love Mary. She's nice, but she can't hold a job. And I heard she has really bad credit. So what does it matter? What you're doing is I don't want you to pay attention because they're lower than us and they disagree with us. So therefore, take them away. And that's what she's essentially doing here. He's lame in both feet, meaning he's broken. Why would you want to hang out with him? By the way, he's on the other side. Now, Jonathan's son wasn't like this his whole life. Now, what happened is, just to give you a little background, Saul and Jonathan is Saul's son, they are killed in battle, and Jonathan's son, his nurse, picks him up and carries him to try to carry him to safety. She falls down, and he crushes his feet, and that's how he got lame in both feet. So he wasn't always this way. If you are lame in both feet in this culture, you are less than. You are not a man any longer. You cannot provide for your family. You should be shunned over there. You're broken. You should go over there. We don't have any place for you. Okay? So, by the way, he's in Lo-debar. And Lo-debar, just so you know, it's translated into a place of no name or not a pasture. That's what Lo-debar actually means. So clearly it's like, this guy is destitute. He's at a place where nobody wants to go. He is basically waiting to die, okay? And it's the perfect time, really, to rub his nose in it. He is in so much pain. He's basically like, this is it. I'm going to give up on life. I'm in total despair. So in 2 Samuel 9:5, so King David had him brought from Lo-debar, from the house of Machir, son of Amiel. So now he's crippled, and one day the soldiers come and they basically say, hey, the king wants to see you. He's probably like, oh, great. As it can't get bad enough, now the king is going to humiliate me too. Great. This is the worst. Now I got to go and meet with him. I'd rather him just leave me alone and let me die here and just, go away. Let me ask you this. Do you ever have those moments where when you hear a family member wants to see you or meet with you, especially during the holidays, you're like, great. We need to talk. When we're at Thanksgiving, I think it would be a good idea for us to maybe go into another room and speak. Oh, come on. I don't want to. Like, just leave me alone. Let me die out here. I don't want to have to go to see you. I don't want to have to deal with you. I don't want to have to talk about stuff I don't want to deal with. And your stomach is turning. When you're driving on the driveway and you get to the door and you could just already hear the voice, you're like, ugh, I got to now hang out with this person. This is the worst. And you're kind of having this thing. But that's kind of where he's at right now. He's just like in the really, really low place. So in 2 Samuel 9:6, when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, he bowed down to pay him honor. And David said to Mephibosheth, at your service, he replied. David said, Mephibosheth, and at your service, he replied. So Mephibosheth is replying to David, at your service. Don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Mephibosheth is waiting to get the hammer dropped on him. This is it. His side won. They could obliterate me now, and he's not dropping the hammer. He's like opening his eyes slowly, like, I thought you were gonna kill me. He's like, no, not only I don't want to kill you, I want you at my table. What? And by the way, the people with David must have been going, what are you doing? This guy's grandfather tried to kill you. What if he rises up to power? Then he's like, I want you at my table. I want you to sit with me. And again, I want to read this again. Don't be afraid. Meaning he had to have been shaking. He had to have been completely nervous. For I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I'll restore you to all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Now, If you're a little confused at this point, here's where it is. He is saying, what are you talking about? But what he didn't know is that before David was king, before Saul wanted to kill him, David was a simple shepherd. His best friend was Jonathan. And so David is saying, and David told Jonathan at that time, I'm always going to take care of you. I've always got your back. I'm never going to leave you, bud. And so now he is saying, because of your father, Jonathan, I've got your back. And so he can't really understand that. He can't really wrap his mind around it. This is a very common theme that runs throughout the New Testament and the Old Testament. It's the story of our salvation with Christ, right? That's what Christianity is based on. It looks, it's basically, you're not saved because of what you've done. You're saved because your dad took the hit for you, and your dad saved you. That's what it looks like. And Jesus says, if you have this, I have a command for you, not a suggestion. In John 13:34, it says, a new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another, except if they vote differently. Except if they have a different religion. Except if it doesn't say any of that at all. Just love one another. That's what I tell you. So the question for you today, does the way you treat others feel like undeniable proof that you're a follower of Jesus? Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. You could memorize all the Bible you want. Great. But is your actions reflecting that you're a follower of Jesus? It's undeniable. By the way, we're going to be judged when this thing ends as well, just so you know. So you want to make sure you're on the right side of this, okay? So for Mephibosheth, he doesn't know why or how this is happening, and we get an insight of how he feels. And I'm thinking some of you feel like this right now. 2 Samuel 9:8, Mephibosheth bowed down and said, what is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? I'm willing to guess some of you feel like I just feel like a dead dog that nobody cares about me. Why would you care about me? When you've got all this, why would you notice me? My life's a mess. Nobody cares about me. Why would you? This is the perfect time to avenge Saul. Doesn't do that. Doesn't do that. This person has the power to destroy him. Instead, he ends up bragging on him. See, that's what God does for us, guys. The whole point of being a Christ follower and why we're not zapped to heaven the second we accept Jesus is so that you could take what God's given you and you can go, who can I give it to? Not who can I obliterate, not who could I demand that they respect me or yell at them until they, agree with me. It's the grace of, okay, now I've got it. Great, thank you for it. I'm holding it. Now the point is, who do I give it to? And a lot of times we don't think like that. We receive it and we think, this is great, we're forgiven, but we're not going to extend that to anybody else who disagrees with me. And that's the problem. Nobody would have blamed David if he would have killed Mephibosheth when he showed up. Nobody would have. In fact, they were probably secretly hoping he would to show how powerful he is, that he killed the descendant of Saul. He doesn't do that. Just like nobody would blame you. Nobody would blame you if you hold a grudge to a family member that hurt you. Nobody would blame you if you held a grudge against an ex. Nobody would blame you if you held a grudge against a boss or a coworker or somebody that really misused your trust. Nobody would blame you. They would say, yeah, they deserve it. But that's not going to help you, and it's not going to set you free. Here's the thing, guys. David just doesn't offer him a meal. He's actually just getting warmed up. And 2 Samuel 9:9 says this, then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's steward, and said to him, I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops so that your master's grandson may be provided for. And Mephibosheth, grandson of your master, will always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, your servant will do whatever my lord the king commands his servants to do. So Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah, and all the members of Ziba's household were servants of Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he always ate at the king's table. He was lame in both feet. Interesting how it ends with he was lame at both feet again. If you're Mephibosheth and you're in heaven, you're like, come on. Everybody's reading this forever. Really? Come on. Why does that still in there. Why? Why does the author need to still put that in there? There's a reason. Because even though the relationships had mended and it was getting better, it's not perfect. It's still messy. It's not like this is a fairy tale. Guys, the authors of the Bible is written by a bunch of books, separate books that were put together. The authors are not writing fairy tales. They are writing what they're actually seeing. That's actually what happened. If it were a fairy tale, Mephibosheth grew wings, and he went and he flew, and he gave Skittles to everybody. It doesn't work that way. He's still lame in both feet. It's still imperfect. Guys, if you try to make up with a family member or try to mend a relationship, it's still going to be messy. Hear me loud and clear. That is not an excuse to take abuse. I want to make that very clear. You are not to be abused. But if you are trying to mend fences with somebody and they're like, okay, I'm willing to go there, they're still going to have different opinions and they still might be jerks. Not everything's going to be perfect. You see, guys, true grace doesn't give to get. It gives because giving is good. That's why it gives. It's like when you tithe or when you give to this church. It's not like, okay, I'll give, but I want one of them testimonies where that guy gave like, $20 and he found a check for $20,000 in the mail. Like, I want one of those stories. It doesn't work that way. We give because giving is good, and I wouldn't have anything if God didn't give me anything anyway. So, why do we do it? We do it because we're called to treat people like Jesus regardless of the outcome. You could say, well, that sounds great, Pastor, but you've obviously never met my family because their problems are way worse than crippled feet, okay? They are jerks, big time. You are in luck. I'm going to give you 6 things. You're not going to have time to write them down, but you can take pictures of them. 6 things that are going to help you if you have a difficult family this holiday season. The first one is make a game plan. Now, you're thinking, to see my family make a game plan, what are we, like playing sports in this? Listen, you're already making a game plan. Let's be honest. You don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you go, okay, we're going to go to my in-laws. The secret word is macaroni. And the second your dad starts talking to me about politics, macaroni or pumpkin, and that means we got to leave. You're already making a game plan on how your exit strategy. You know you are. So you might as well make a game plan on how do we kind of bring this together. I'm going to give you pro tips and a bottom line. The pro tips is this. Playing a game, watching a game, going to a movie are great ways to connect with a group of people that you find it difficult to find common ground with. Also, asking them about the details of their quirky interests or hobbies creates common ground as well. These are well thought out things, guys. I'm telling you they may work. I'm going to try them out too. The bottom line, if you don't go in with a game plan, you're going to end up saying something stupid or bringing up a contentious subject. If you know politics are an issue, don't go in there and go, hey, how about that election? It's not going to go well, right? You're going to have some issues. Number 2, take care of yourself. Some of us are hangry. And when you don't eat and when you don't nap and when you go to your family's house, you're already revved up and you're upset. Oh, this is what could set you off into the Incredible Hulk. Oh, sweetie, dinner's going to be about 45 minutes late. What? Shirts ripped off, things are raw. Go in with a plan that hey, make sure you're fed and make sure that you get your rest. Because when you go in there, it's not going to be good if you're cranky. Remember, guys, it's never selfish to take care of yourself. Please remember that, okay? Pro tips and bottom line on this one. Get enough rest. Don't skip meals. Stick to your regular rhythms and routines as much as you can. And when you hit a wall, bow out. It's better to pause and take a nap than push through and be mean. And bottom line is, the healthier your mind and body are, the less likely you are to be reactionary to other people. Now, some of you are already thinking of that certain somebody in your family, and you're like, I'm going to have a bucket of goldfish crackers just, because I don't want to get hangry because this person really drives me crazy. Okay, the next one is expect them to be them. You ever notice, in sitcoms, the reason it's funny is because you have a mother-in-law like that, or you have a sibling like that, or you have a son-in-law or daughter-in-law like that, and they're kind of annoying, and you're like, yep, I know how that is, And so it's funny, but when it's in your actual life, it's not funny anymore. Make it funny. Make it fun, okay? Pro tips and bottom line on this. When we see some of these sitcoms of the annoying relative, we quietly chuckle to ourselves because we have the permission where they have that person in our family. But when it's your real relative, we hate it because we're often expecting something different. But in reality, they're playing the role they've always played. That's just them. So just kind of bottom line on this, we get upset when our expectations aren't met, so expect them to be quirky person they've always been, and release your need to change or control and just enjoy the show. When they start doing it, just start laughing. What are you laughing about? This is just funny to me. Now it's funny. Now it's not bothering me anymore. They're going to probably go, what? Okay, number 4, don't take the bait, please. You have family members that just want to make you crazy. That's their job, okay? They want to drive you crazy, and they know what drives you crazy. So they're going to don't take the bait. Remember this, guys. If somebody's unhappy with their life, they don't like seeing you happy. You being happy bothers them. So they're going to try to take you down. Pro tips on this. See jabs and barbs as a bid for connection and attention. Give them an assignment, something they can be part of and benefit the group. It'll make them feel useful, responsible, and needed. And bottom line is, you don't have to accept every invitation to debate or argue. You can redirect that energy somewhere else, okay? Number 5, actively calm yourself down. Please remember this, guys. Your body, when it gets triggered, gets worked up. So anything is going to be a pain to you. As soon as you're triggered, you're going to be upset. So bottom line, and our pro tips and bottom line, grab some fresh air, take a short walk outside to reset your nervous system. Excuse yourself to a back room, the backyard, or a bathroom to be alone for a few minutes. Self-soothe by placing your hand over your heart. I've done this before, and it's actually worked. Just go to the bathroom and go again. It's okay. And so 45 more minutes. I got this. Bottom line, for most of us, our whole strategy is just hoping not to get triggered. But the truth is, you're going to. You need to ask yourself, what am I going to do when I am triggered? Because you're going to. So what's my plan here? And then the last one, 6, is let go of being right, okay? Yes, you might be right. You might have factual. Thanksgiving could be on Thursday. Every year it's on Thursday. You could have a relative that just wants to push your buttons because, it wasn't always that way. Until the 1980s, it was on a Friday. No, it wasn't. Don't just let them be whatever. Fine. Just let them have it. Pro tips. You don't have to pretend you agree with them to be genuinely interested in what they're saying. You could simply say, I don't not necessarily agree with you, but I do want to learn more of what you're saying, and then just listen without judgment. This is a very big topic with politics, okay? I don't agree with you. I would have never voted that way. Why don't you explain to me what you're saying? It'll lower the temperature. Bottom line, our bodies are calmer when we're in a posture of learning instead of a posture of defending, just to be a learner for the day. Now, guys, I had this. I got in one time I was at Christmas, and I have a family relative, and we were on two opposite sides of a very hot topic, very, very hot topic. And I was trying to prove myself right, and I realized I'm just getting this person more riled up. I got to just back out now. So I honestly just said, well, tell me why you think that way. And it was like, I was like, whoa, that works. So, hey, there you go. It'll work. Guys, being a Christian is hard. It really is. It's not easy. But remember this, please. A Christian's responsibility is to care and connect. That's your responsibility. Not to convince or convict. You cannot convince anybody of something that they don't want to believe. And you can't convict them because you don't have the right to, because you're not perfect either. So just make sure you remember that. Please remember this, guys. The Holy Spirit is going to use you, but you got to make sure you're not trying to win every little argument. And if that's you and you're having a hard time, please remember this prayer. Jesus, help me look for opportunities to love, listen to, and learn from those I'm tempted to lecture. Remember that one. Everybody should look at that one. That's a big one, okay? Because I know we're tempted to lecture people, especially if we think we're right, but don't do it because it's just not going to work. I'm going to give you an example. I know families are tough. I get it. Anybody see Four Christmases? You see that movie? Okay. Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon. Now, they literally have 4 separate Christmases, and each one of them is a disaster. And I'm sure you guys would see this and kind of think it's funny because Robert Duvall is Vince Vaughn's dad, and he gives him this fatherly advice, but he's kind of a messed up dad. And he gives him this fatherly advice, and his dad's like, you need to make up with so and so. You need to make up with so and so. And Robert Duvall plays his dad, goes, remember this wise advice, son. You can't spell families without lies. As that's good advice. And he's like, thanks, is that supposed to be helping me? It's not helping me. It's not helping me. So I get it. Family dynamics could be crazy. I get that. But here's the deal, guys. How sad would that story that we just talked about with David and Mephibosheth, how bad would that story have been as if Mephibosheth was at David's table and he said, thank you so much, and then he left the table and with his newfound power with David, and now he goes, I'm going to look for everybody that made fun of me for being crippled. I'm going to look for everybody that looked over me. I'm going to look for all the people that didn't have pity on me, and I'm going to wipe the face of the earth with them now. We would be like, oh my gosh, that guy didn't learn anything. How sad is that? But we do that all the time, guys. We take the grace God gives us, and then we look to obliterate somebody who disagrees with us. And we got to be really, really careful with that, guys. I get it. Payback is normal to a lot of us. Revenge is normal. There's a reason why this story is recorded in the Bible, and many of them like that are recorded in the Bible, and that is this. If you see that kind of grace, you're gonna remember that. The people that were at that table remembered that. They recorded it. When Jesus would show that kind of grace, you had, Matthew just scribbling notes down. You're never going to forget these things. I know that from personal experience. Guys, divorce is very hard. Very hard. It's why the Bible talks about it, because not because if you've been divorced, you're a terrible person. It's not. I know people try to wedge that in there. It's not that at all. It talks about it because it knows that it rips families apart and it's painful. And it's hurtful. And it was the same with my parents when they were divorced. They were married for over 20 years. And when they got divorced, it was painful and it did rip everything apart. And families took sides. Maybe many of you know what that looks like. Families took sides. People that were right here together, loved each other. Totally separate sides and not welcome in my home anymore. It's over. Very, very ugly stuff. In my family, Mark's my cousin, Vic's my brother. We have this big, giant family, and we had so much fun. It was the best family. And this divorce severed so many relationships in that family. And my grandmother was not a well person. She had already had a stroke. She was not doing well. She listened to some really bad advice. And my mom, who was just a saint, she didn't have a big family gathering, so she would go to my dad's side of the family because I was like the big family, and it was on Christmas. So my mom goes to Christmas, and they just got divorced. She is terribly lonely, but she musters up the courage to get some presents together, and she goes to my aunt's house, and my grandmother happened to be there, and she said, hi, everybody, I've got some presents, and some people literally got up and moved away from her. These are people that were right there with her just a couple years earlier. And she considered family. And so my grandmother looked at my mom and said, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. You need to leave. My mom said, okay. She got up and she left. My brother, who is Wally Cleaver, the nicest man ever, and is a great guy, and he's got a great job, and he's single, so any of you single ladies, he's awesome if you're watching on. No, but he is a great guy. Just a great, great, great big brother, great protector, great guy. Never would say a disparaging word to authority ever. Looked at my grandmother and said, I love you, but don't you ever talk to my mother like that again. And we left. And that's when I knew this is real. The family's breaking up. It's real now. This isn't just an argument. This is now real. Go to my house, and I heard my mom crying uncontrollably. And I thought she was talking to somebody. So I go and I listen at the door, and she's praying for them. And I didn't understand. I'm like, well, why would you be praying for them? They just kicked you out. So I came in, and I said, are you okay? And she said, sit with me. And she grabbed my hand, and she said, I want you to pray for him. And so I did. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to hurt her any more than she already was hurt. So I did. And it wasn't long after, my mom ended up doing very, very well for herself. She got herself up. She started her own business, and she did really, really well. My dad did not do very well. He had to end up moving back with his parents. It was a very rough time for him. This is a time where she could easily gloat and say, I won. I beat you. You blew it. She goes to my grandmother's house. My grandmother looked like she saw a ghost. Remember this, Vic? She gets on her knees, and she says, Grandma, I love you. Can I pray with you? And they pray together. And she said, I love you. I said, I love you too. There's a reason why that story stays with me today as I teach you today, after 40 years. When you see that kind of grace, you don't forget it. You could forget grudges, and grudges come and go, and all this other stuff. You see that kind of grace, man, you don't forget it. I get people may have hurt you. I understand. But hating them is not going to set you free from that prison, no matter how good it might feel temporarily. You've got to say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? So the question I'm going to leave you with today is, as we close, who are you going to teach that lesson to? And who are you going to give what Jesus gave you for free this holiday season? Let's pray. Father God, I thank you so much for your church. I thank you for the sacrifice and that you've given us and that we have for free. It's this free gift that we get to enjoy. God, help us to remember that. There are people that we don't like, we don't want to be around, we want to teach them a lesson, we want to tell them how wrong they are, and I know we want to do all those things because we're human beings and that's how we are. But Father God, help us to, this holiday season, especially with those we disagree with, to extend that grace to someone else. I know that will please you, Jesus. Father, thank you for this church family, that we could be here, we could do life together, and we could be honest and real and raw together. And we don't have to pretend we're something we're not. We could tell the truth. We say, I love you, Jesus, but I'm also a sinner and I make mistakes. And I thank you that I've got a community that's not going to judge me and is going to pick me up when I'm down, and we're going to keep on this journey the best we can. Thank you, Father, for that. Thank you for the sacrifice, the people who are serving here, God. Thank you for our offerings and the giving that people do. This holiday season, when the finances are tight, people continue to give and honor you with that, God. Thank you for that, so that we can continue to do ministry. I thank you for the fact that my family, especially my kids, look forward to Sunday because they get to see their church family. Thank you so much for this, what you've given us, God. And thank you, and help us to introduce as many people as we can to you this holiday season by how we are and what you've given us. It's in your name. Amen. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.